Hi everyone, I'm actually here taking a walk around my neighborhood. Uh, it might not be very clear in terms of the visuals, but the point is not really the visual. So it's actually the message I'm trying to get across. So as you all know, I actually lodged a police report about I think about yeah, it's about 1 month ago. So it was pretty late actually, and for those who are aware, it was actually 9 years. Yeah, 9 years after that assault case that I actually experienced. But the outcome wasn't, it wasn't really good as an outcome, because if you think about it, with 9 years, with all that time that has elapsed, even if the police actually takes up your case and if they believe your case, which was what they did, there is very little evidence that remains to actually allow them to actually escalate to the point of prosecuting the aggressor, the assailant. But I guess that the good thing, the blessing in this, the silver lining, is that because the law actually does protect the victims, in the sense that the victims and survivors of the assault, in that the personal details, such as their address and numbers, will be, and an email, will be safeguarded. So the aggressors don't normally get a chance to actually do things like so-called counter suing for so-called alleged defamation. And of course, we have to make sure that our digital footprint is clear enough, in that we don't name anyone. And we want to make sure that we don't get the kind of case where this is not good for us. Okay, these are things that we have to be careful about. But okay, what I'm trying to get across down here has to do with what I actually learned during this 1 month. While I was trying to do some inner work, and also talking to my psychologist, and also after learning about the DD case and everything in America, we kind of realize that at the end of it, even with all this, at the end of so-called end of the tunnel, the darkness or whatever, the truth is this: most cases of such things like S.A assault, whether it involves anything like like RAP, okay. In my case, it didn't involve RAP. It was actually I would think that legally or psychologically, in some cases, in some countries, this would be considered the least, in terms of the lightest degree, that I escaped with very little injury or whatever. But there are some cases where people do come out of it with a lot of injuries and everything. So but that said, we know that most of the time the truth is that very few people actually go forth to report this case, whether like boys, adult men, or girls or women. Okay, it's just a normal thing with most people who are victims, because there's a very strong sense of shame. Okay, and even after reporting the case, there's no guarantee. Okay, even with evidence and everything, that the perpetrator is actually going to get punished. Okay, and this is a sad thing, but it's a sad truth. And we know that with the case of Didi, there's like 5 charges, but I think only 2, he was only convicted on account of 2. But the next thing is that it's going on as to whether how long this sentence that he's going to receive will be. Okay, some people who are very skeptical of the legal system in the USA or in America would say that he'll probably just get away, with a light tap on the wrist, like probation and everything. But I doubt it. But others who are a bit more assured and confident would say that he would at least be looking at maybe 5 to 10 years, okay, for each of the sentence that he's actually 5 years, and then altogether when it's combined, that would be maybe 10 years, okay, for the sentence. So really it depends on the judge and all the investigations from an independent third person legal body or organization. So the thing is this, unfortunately we know the thing is this, with reports, it takes about, from what I read, okay, it takes about 15 counts of all this, not just complaints or reports against the aggressor, for them to even end up getting caught and charged, okay? And yeah, so just think about it. After, even if it's below that number, so most of them just like Didi, there's always this possibility that they'll go out and re-offend again after, even if they get caught and charged. And it's a very sad truth, okay? So, this makes people lose their whole sense of trust or faith in the legal system wherever they are in the world, okay? And in some countries where there's a lot of corruption, where people just buy their way out, okay, with money, with power, with clout. It's very common. I mean, my student would say that this is called tampering, okay? Tampering as in tampering with the law. But, he doesn't get it. But I said this is very normal in some countries. And I mean, in Singapore, they say that it doesn't happen. But I am very, very skeptical as well. I believe that it does happen. And I mean, the truth is that, the one who actually essayed me, okay, was he had actually a number of cases going on against him, okay, prior to this. And some of these were not even criminal cases, they were civil cases. One of them was about, I think, two. Two of them were about the alleged disclosure of models' pictures without permission, okay. But how did he get out? How did he wizard out of the situation legally? He got his so-called lawyer then, who has been now disbarred, okay, talking about karma and everything. That lawyer has now been disbarred for something else, for assaulting his niece and another female employee in his firm back then, quite a number of years ago. But back then, when the lawyer was still a lawyer with that license, he actually, from what I heard, okay, don't take my word for it, but I heard that he was going around trying to settle the case for him, for that assailant by paying people to settle, okay. So, of course, the thing is this, there's such a case called settlement, legal settlement, where they say, they agree to settle for certain kind of damages, and people would just withdraw the case, and it wouldn't be escalated, and it's still some form of tampering. But sometimes it doesn't get to that stage again as well. So my one friend who works in public relations told me, it's a bit sad, but and it's quite disappointing in the sense that that all of us were very disappointed that there's no sense of justice, that ultimately, but this always goes, everything is not my fault. It is the very basic thing that the law has limitations, okay? And that was one thing that the police officer told me that kind of made me realize that we can't always trust the police or the law to be on our side all the time, because when he said, we still have to get the other person's story, and it was like a kind of case where they say, the accused's rights are more important than the victim's rights, okay. So then again, the thing is, no one who I tell you, among all these so-called perpetrators, who will admit to what they did? Almost none, okay? Because to them it's like, even if they did it, it's not their fault, but they didn't do it anyway, according to them, their own version. because they are the people of the lie. So, and even if they did it, there's a reason why they did it, and they're justified in everything. It's not their fault. I kind of realized this, and during that 1 month, when, and even in between when I was talking to the 1 month after the report, when I was talking to the psychologist about this, she said, I just hope that, before you go on any holidays during the coming summer or any break, don't go around on all these breaks and everything, these holidays, blaming yourself and thinking, why is it that, you didn't end up the way I wanted this to be, because this is just the nature of the law, okay? There's always this whole thing about the obsession with proving beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? And we know that with time, the more it passes by, this is going back to the whole thing about statute of limitations, and the more it actually drags on and on and on and on, also because of the fact that all of us, as victims and survivors, we go through a certain complex of shame. We just don't want to, go out and report it because society shames the victims, okay? And yeah, especially the longer it gets, the more we just don't want to say it, okay? We don't want to talk about it or report it because we know that no one will believe us, okay? Even if it's true. And so to go back to what she said that, I shouldn't blame myself. And I kind of realized this, after, not just in terms of my own disappointment with the police and the way it was being done, the disappointment with the legal system, its limitations, and the sense of injustice that there's nothing being done to prevent all these offenders from re-offending. I just kind of realized that there needs to be something else in place for us, for the victims and survivors and those who are even potentially their so-called targets. There are things that we need to do to protect ourselves, okay? And I know that a lot of times in psychology, coaching, or therapy, people will talk a lot about this thing called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is when we are so vigilant and so careful that to the point that we almost don't trust anything, okay? So we could end up in a state where, let's say, everything's okay with someone we just met as a friend or acquaintance, or even a professional associate. But once we encounter something that looks vaguely like a so-called trigger, or something that even looks or sounds similar to that person who has caused us harm, we'll start getting triggered. And then, when we get triggered, we just run away, we avoid the person, and it's a natural protective mechanism. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, okay? So the truth is that it was part of our own evolutionary mechanism as humans, back when we were in certain kinds of situations like war, famine, fighting against, like even earlier days, like, I don't know about prehistoric days, but when we were fighting in our group, our tribes, against animals, the elements and everything, and predators. So yeah, this whole hypervigilance is a part of our evolutionary mechanism. So what I want to get across is that there's nothing wrong, okay? There's nothing wrong with having such vigilance, but it's only when it becomes excessive, where we just knock down everyone and say that nobody is to be trusted, and then we become so socially isolated to the point that we don't care, okay? We just don't care, okay? That is when you might actually bother into certain things like, personality disorders, like schizoid personality disorder. And one thing, even anyone who's read about certain kind of cluster B personality disorders, we know that narcissism, histrionic, borderline, they are extremely, they are along the same cluster, okay, the cluster B personality disorders, according to the DSM-5 manual, and even before that, prior to that, in the DSM-4 manual, diagnostic and statistical manual for personality disorders. So the reason why they are in the same cluster is because they are essentially relational. Okay, they orbit this personality disorders are cluster B personality disorders, because as disorders, they orbit in that whole they orbit in the whole spectrum of dysfunctions and psychological disorders that actually relational, or we say they're dysfunction, they're relational in a very dysfunctional way. Okay, so partially because they basically burn through all these relationships. So we don't want to end up getting hyper vigilant to the point that we burn through any relationship or any new acquaintances, not just new acquaintances, but even old ones, because there are people who do that, and we hear enough or see enough of that outside. And online we have this so-called content creators, but some of them are no different from narcissists, because they are basically, they can, one moment they can love bomb you, say, oh, I love you all, but I mean, we don't even know them. People online, how do we love them or know them? And then the next moment they are like accusing you of stuff, saying things about you, or lying about you, trying to control and manipulate you. So this is very common online. Okay, so I think, as I said, we need to be really vigilant, and we need to be careful. So there are certain signs and certain red flags that come about. Okay, we have to kind of just basically start formulating our own deal breakers, our own set. I'm not saying that there's a universal one. There's no universal code saying that, oh, what applies to me in terms of like triggering that sense of vigilance, that kind of warning signal, is going to be the same for you, for other people. Okay, they need not be the same, and because they are not necessarily always the same, there should be at least a kind of baseline for establishing it. Okay, those kind of baselines, like how they speak to you. Do they take so much liberty assuming that they know you? Okay, although they don't. Okay, and also excessive questioning, love interest, or even if it's not love interest, like friends and acquaintances and professionals, when they keep on bugging you and asking you non-stop questions, some of which are really excessively intrusive. Okay, like things about your personal life, which you don't really need to say anything about. Okay, or even your trauma. You don't need to tell anyone about trauma during the first few sessions of meeting someone. Okay, even if it's a romantic interest, don't tell them. Okay, please don't tell them. And same thing, not just with our romantic history or personal life history, whatever. The other thing is actually our professional goals. Okay, don't tell someone. I get very, very annoyed when I go for a job interview. I know that this is a very common thing here in Singapore or elsewhere. They say, what are your plans in the next 5 years? Excuse me, I don't even know what's going to happen 1 year from now or 6 months from now. Okay, why do you want to know so much about me, like to that point that you want to know my plan? It's a very, it gives me kind of like a really obvious, it's an obvious red flag to me. Okay, because narcissists also do that. They ask you toxic, not just narcissists, but toxic people. They ask you, what do you plan to do? They want to know your dreams or whatever. But guess what? Once they've weaseled themselves into your confidence, within like a space of not even just years, but even months or weeks, once they know what you want, your dreams, your loves, your passions, and everything, people like that will just crush. They'll crush it with some comments. Such as like, you're not classy enough, you're not good enough to do this, I don't think you can actually do it, you're very lucky to do. Or the worst one would be the kind where they jokingly, or they claim to be, it's a constant trolling. I think that maybe you're very lucky to get this thing. It's like it makes it sound like it's an insult, but they make it sound like an insult wrapped with how should I say, wrapped in velvet. So basically you're slapping you with your velvet glove. These are things that I don't think are very healthy. So, but most of us just brush it past, because in the name of being kind, being empathetic, we just forget it. And also, the thing with our hypervigilance or vigilance, that mechanism, we tend to just say, oh, maybe I'm just thinking too much. So, as I said, it's very important that we ascertain what the baseline. Okay, this is something that we need to establish right before we talk to anyone, meet anyone new, or even with people you already know. Okay, there are certain things you don't tell them. Okay, like your dreams, your plans, or whatever for the next few years. What you need to tell them that, unless they are going to help you. Okay, unless they're really going to help you, like a counselor or psychologist or psychotherapist, or some career planner. Okay, this kind of people. Okay, but otherwise, no, don't do that. Okay, and what else? Yeah, there's also this kind of thing about being secretive about your plans and your dreams and goals. I think also like the personal life thing, your interests and everything, you need to be very careful and circumspect. Some people can actually mirror that particular interest, but you realize that some people, especially narcissistic and toxic people, they don't actually have very, very clear interests or identity. Their whole idea of these boundaries of identity are very fluid. So one moment when they first know you, they dress like you, they speak like you, or they might try to kind of observe you and find out what you like. Sometimes it's not really romantic or sexual or whatever, but it just happens to be something that they can actually use to bind you, okay, to them. And then after that, once you're kind of hooked in, after a while you start realizing, wait, this person who claimed to be he or she, whoever they claim to be, who is very interested in my life, what I do, everything, my hobbies, turns out to be the exact opposite. And he or she is always criticizing my stuff, and it'll become very uneasy for you. But again, because you're already hooked, okay, it need not be a trauma bond. Just simply could be just this sense that you don't want to offend anyone. You're scared of them. These people have a lot of clout and power. They play on your fear, okay, and you just keep quiet, okay. And yeah, some of us will just be walking on eggshells. I kind of realized this, especially with the case of the assault. One of the things that the police asked me was, like, if you know that the person is like that after the first time, why I think a lot of people are asking, why is it that they all went back to talk to the person, okay? This is one of the myths about consent, okay? They say, why is it that you would talk to the person, continue to befriend them, or at least reply to what they message you about? It's not that we want it, okay? There are many factors, and even like what the psychologist told me, some of us, yeah, we don't make the right decisions because fear makes us do things which we do not want to do. Okay, it's a very sad fact, but it is true. Okay, for example, fear can make you relinquish your particular interest or hold it off, and not do it because you fear offending someone. Okay, and if it's not that, it could be simply just holding off a plan. Okay, because you're scared that someone will get angry. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it does happen, and sometimes I kind of realize this with all these kind of predators. They always manage to know what you are interested in within the first few sessions or first few minutes of meeting you. And once they know it, they might mirror initially that interest, but after a while, that interest will be flipped around, and they will actually use that to attack you, to undermine and denigrate you. Okay, so just be careful. Don't be too open with yourself. We are not open books. Okay, although I know people say, "Oh, I'm an open book. There's nothing to hide." When we say that there's nothing to hide, sometimes it's actually not always the most beneficial or constructive for us in terms of protecting ourselves from predators, because I mean, especially from strangers. Like the police asked me why. I mean, he said he didn't say why, but he said, next time, when you have something like a friendly message from someone you don't really know, even if the person is very friendly, this is the main thing with grooming. Okay, with grooming, assault, and all other forms of predatory behavior. Okay, that includes manipulation and things like that, which might even escalate into abuse and SA and all these things. So the thing is that he said what the policeman told me when he was writing my case down, the report, was that next time you have all this kind of offers of anything, like it might sound friendly, all these people might actually try to do so because they want something out of you. Okay, it might not be sex, could be money, could be something else, attention, could be a so-called open and close inverted commas relationship or situationship, or something is like something pseudo. It's a pseudo relationship, but ultimately when they are friendly to you, it's not a very genuine kind of thing, because they have motives. And he said that don't just reply to these people or even take up the offer, whatever, like someone offers a free photo shoot, so I'll help you build out your portfolio, and he said he or she is trying to do the same thing too as a photographer. Don't just take their word for it. Okay, don't take their word for it, because some of it, as I've heard, there are worse cases. And I was lucky in the sense that my case was, I thought it was pretty bad enough, to the fact that it was escalated by the police to the serious sexual crimes department, for report. But again, the fact that it doesn't exactly warrant, there wasn't enough evidence to push the case to prosecution. So I think instead of like crying over spilled milk, which is probably not a very good idea, but we know that some of us still end up getting to the kind of situation. I think the best thing is to make sure that we can protect ourselves. So and one thing that I think also all of us need to be aware now is, our digital footprint is something that I think all of us we are not vetting it as much as we used to. Okay, and I think that personally there's nothing wrong with sharing what you really about doing your life and everything. That's just my opinion. But some other people, who are content creators, they'll say no, it's like making yourself so transparent that such that even the predators will prey upon this knowledge. I think there's a kind of value to what they have said in terms of this thing about the transparency being a kind of flaw or weakness. So after that I kind of realized, okay, I need to set my Instagram, my social media, most of my social media has been set to private, in the sense that unless the person is a friend, or unless the person first sends a request and asking me to approve of it, I don't just let them follow me like that. So I think that it's a better and safer way compared to just allowing anyone to follow you like that. Okay, it's not very beneficial and not very safe. And also be careful about our posts. There's nothing wrong if you want to post something. Let's say, I did a body profile photo shoot. It's good, it's awesome. I was in good shape, whatever. Posting it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever is fine. But there's nothing wrong with sharing that. Those the fruits of my hard work. But at the same time, we want to actually be careful about who gains access to us. So I don't think that not everyone deserves that kind of access to us. I kind of realized that with the assailant had a lot of access to different people, and all those people, some of them are playing with fire, still trying to maintain a so-called friendship despite knowing what that person is like. I won't speculate about what their outcome will be. I think that it might end up causing the break between their relationship with the other halves, or their business partners or whatever. Okay, but that's their karma. They have to deal with it. But ultimately, I just think that we need to protect ourselves. Okay, So yeah, so anyway, this is what I have to say now for the moment. And yes, I need to do stuff like packing and everything, and so yeah, traveling and everything. So okay, so have a good one everyone. Okay, bye bye.